Hi, my name is Mary Buchanan, and I am covering Chapter 9, Performance Management. The area that I've chosen to focus on is performance appraisals and how they can be an advantage or disadvantage to companies. Performance appraisals have become an extremely normalized practice for most companies up until recently because managers are realizing that they may not be as effective as one may think. So, how do we define performance management? Performance management is defined as the continuous process of identifying, measuring, and developing the performance of individuals and teams and aligning their performance with the organization's goals. So now let's take a look at the previous and current trends and characteristics of performance appraisals. The first trend in performance appraisals is that it is annually, which means that the goals are long-term, making it less efficient than continuous feedback. Annual performance appraisals are only a macro view of an employee's performance, which can be helpful as it gives employees a general overview of how they are doing. They do not dive deep into successes, failures, and how to improve as an individual and for the company's well-being. They indicate potential problems worth looking into. Several employees claim that these annual reviews are unhelpful and potentially harmful because you are creating artificial steps just to check a box. Nobody operates the same, which means that half of your employees could need continuous feedback to improve and perform at their highest level. One of the biggest cons of performance reviews is that they are potentially biased due to some managers giving ratings based on their own personal agenda. For example, a manager could give a good rating just so that an employee could get promoted out of their unit. Lastly, performance appraisals are extremely objective. Rating employees solely on objective measures such as sales numbers, absentee days, or customer calls may seem like a winning strategy, but those data points can be misleading. You may think about all the factors that are beyond you must think about all the factors that are beyond an employee's control. So moving on to the right to current trends of performance appraisals, most companies have not gotten rid of performance reviews altogether. However, they're moving towards more informal ways of keeping tabs on their employees' performance. When looking at the companies who are beginning to move away from annual reviews, we see that they are focusing on continuous, quick check-ins. Instead of one review each year, managers are providing continuous feedback to their employees, which is becoming crucial to an employee's performance because it is more relevant information at the time. Companies are beginning to adopt everyday management, which involves managers giving real-time feedback on things they are doing well in areas where they can improve. Lastly, and most importantly, managers are relying on several different people within the system, including peers as well as supervisors. The best source of data is often not in the manager who normally conducts the performance reviews, which is a very important point to think about. So moving on to my article, the article that I found is called Why Appraisals Are Pointless for Most People, and I found it on BBW Workface. And it discusses the cons that are attached with your company's annual performance review and why it is important to rethink your performance management practices. The main point of the article is to show that companies spend millions of dollars and countless hours on performance reviews, which leads us to the big question: do performance reviews really work? So Elaine Poulakos, the CEO of PDRI, stated, "By all the available evidence, formal attempts to rate employees don't seem to meaningfully improve employee performance or give companies any sort of competitive advantage. They end up being extremely costly and have no impact on productivity." Nobody has been able to come up with a rating system that can reliably discern which companies have high performers and which companies do not. It is hard to tell by simply looking at the bottom line. 80% of companies still use performance reviews because behavior change in organizations is extremely difficult. Management experts argue that most performance appraisals neither motivate employees nor guide their performance. This leads to the concept of total quality management. Total quality management programs integrate all functions and processes of the business such that all aspects of the business, including design, planning, production, distribution, and field service, are aimed at maximizing customer satisfaction through continuous improvements. At the end of the day, each company needs to figure out its own approach to getting the most out of its employees, and some may thrive off performance reviews. However, other companies may need more hands-on and continuous feedback in order to drive performance. So moving on to the possible outcomes, this article is extremely recent as of May 2019, so there are not specific outcomes that have been distinguished. However, it is moving towards a contemporary management style that could change the way companies operate as a whole. There are two possible outcomes, in my opinion, that may come from the several questions and research over the effectiveness of annual reviews. First, I am predicting that within the next 5 years, a significant amount of companies will decide to do away with performance appraisals altogether. However, there is also a huge possibility that companies may not change their way of reviewing their employees because it is extremely difficult to change the way the business world thinks. So in relation to the course between, in regards to the relation between this article and the course, the textbook Human Resource Management has a very traditional view of performance appraisals and defines them as evaluating an employee's current and or past performance relative to his or her performance standards. It doesn't dive into the pros and cons of performance appraisals like the article does. However, it is said that appraisal interview is to improve the employee's level of engagement. For example, it shows the employee how his or her efforts contribute to the team's and company's success. Overall, this article relates to the course because we have been learning that human resources is continuously changing and working towards the ultimate success of each individual company, which is seen in the article through the new trends of performance appraisals. So after doing some research on this topic of performance management, I think performance appraisals have great intentions. However, there are several changes that need to be made. If I were running a company, I would completely get rid of annual performance appraisals and become a more hands-on manager. It is extremely important to provide continuous feedback to your employees because it keeps them engaged and hungry to improve their performance. As I said earlier, companies need to do what is best for them, but more and more are realizing that the new trends of performance reviews may be more efficient for their company personally.